The biggest challenge that the Fostering Learning, Identity, and Participation in STEM Education, or FlipSTEM Hub, is working to address is this whole idea of how to design with as opposed to for middle and high school students with respect to things like programming practices and technology use in STEM settings. On March 29th, we held a workshop around data justice principles and data science. And so we talked about things like centering those most impacted by design and believing that everyone is an expert and can be a designer, and looking for things that are already working in communities before designing new solutions. So that work really set the stage for some beginnings of authentic partnerships with North Carolina counties, teachers and students. We're really working to promote inclusiveness by centering diverse perspectives and voice as a function of our design. So I think that can empower students to not only see themselves in STEM through their strengths, but also to identify and tackle the most profound challenges facing them in their communities.
So our hub is called the SUPR Schools Hub, and SUPR stands for Systems for Uncorrelating Poverty and Reading.
Based on our framework, we are starting to look at a strategy for studying what we call super schools, schools that have beat the odds in terms of that relationship between poverty and reading. So we've started visiting some schools that potentially fulfill that promise of super schools, and we've developed an analytic approach to identifying which North Carolina elementary schools will be super schools that will warrant further study.
By closely examining some of the identified super schools, we hope we can find some innovative practices and policies that they've been able to put in place that could be replicated in other schools to achieve similar outcomes. We envision the creation of a network of super schools, and they could sort of become a network of leaders across the state who could develop best practices together and then help share and translate those best practices out to other schools.
Well, our Interdisciplinary Research Hub, which is entitled Wellbeing and Educational Equity in Rural Communities, or the WERC Hub for short, is designed to uplift voices within rural communities, particularly of residents, of teachers, of students that hold multiple marginalized identities. So we're hoping that all of our activities this semester would result in two things. Number one, strong relationships with different types of rural communities, literally from one end of the state to the other. And then the second is a list of research questions that we've generated in partnership with residents in rural communities who have come to our listening sessions and weighed in and shared their perspectives with us. And so our hope is that in the months and the years ahead, we'd be able to continue building those relationships with residents in rural communities, but then also be able to use our expertise as researchers and teachers and scholars to be able to benefit communities and to help them achieve their visions of wellness and well-being and educational equity.